Hello, I'm Alexander von Welchek, and we're continuing with Annetta's story. This is going to be the time frame of about 1993 to 2008. I think we call them the retired years. And Annetta, tell us about you then left the business and started to take things a little slower.
Yeah, so now I was full-time in Mill Valley again, and my husband took it easier too. The business was, the children were gone, they all were married. Diana had a lovely wedding a few years ago. Then my son got married in Germany to a lovely young lady, and then Margie got married a few years later. So the house was empty, and we had in the meantime moved also into a smaller house. The larger house we gave up. We had first tenants in there, and across the street we had bought once a cottage which I had remodeled, and that was perfect for us, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. It was just a lovely little setting, and now we could just close the door and we would travel a lot to Hawaii. Every year it took like a month. Most first to Maui, but then we actually preferred to go to Oahu because there was more going on there, and we liked to go to nice restaurants and so on. So that was very nice. Many years, every year was a month in Hawaii. And then in between we also took trips to like a nice cruise through the Baltic, and we started in England, and to Denmark, to Copenhagen, and then to Helsinki, and to Stockholm, first Stockholm, Helsinki, St. Petersburg, which was so fascinating. St. Petersburg was absolutely a very impressive and amazing city.
So you and Rocky like to travel together. You enjoyed similar things?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we always liked to travel. He liked to travel. Me also, so I had to do always the arrangements. I had to make all the arrangements. He just always enjoyed coming along. And then, we went on some tours through Europe too, that we had bought a car in Europe once, and then we traveled all the way through Austria, Hungary, into Yugoslavia, and then into Paris again. Every time we were in Europe, we had to go to Paris. I don't know, we were almost every year in Paris, it seemed like, for a while. And then, once we also had a beautiful trip going all the way through Germany, Switzerland, all the way into Italy. I drove right into Rome. That was also a fabulous trip. And anyway, we did a lot of small and bigger trips. And then my husband was slowly getting older. Well, I was too, I think, but he felt it more. And then...
and he had, at this time, his business? He had stopped working, or still working a little bit, or...?
Well, little by little, he did less and less. Mm-hmm. I really don't know exactly the point when he stopped then. Then he was getting also ill, and he needed open heart surgery. That's when the doctor told him, no more, you shouldn't go to the office anymore. And then he closed the doors. That was it. And after that, we traveled actually only one more time to my brother-in-law had a certain birthday in the city of Trier in Germany, and from there we rented a car. We went to Zurich to visit some friends, and then we spent several weeks in the Garda Lake, where my daughter had acquired a lovely place right at the lake there, and we spent, I don't know, probably a month there. That was actually the time of 9/11. When it was 9/11, that's when we were on Garda Lake. We didn't even understand what was going on because we couldn't understand the Italian, and it was also crazy on television. I thought, why every channel has always these gruesome movies? Why do they do this? And then we found out what really had happened, and it was very, very sad. And next morning on the plaza there what was that name again? Very cute little town on the Garda Lake.
Malcesine?
Malcesine, yeah. On the plaza we found there were a lot of Americans. Everybody was crying and upset and wanted to go straight home again, but you know, it was an upsetting time. And well, anyway, my husband was getting, he had less and less energy, and had all kinds of sicknesses came about, you know.
So between 93 when you retired and between 2001 when you made your last trip, there's some other highlights. I think your daughter Diana got married and had children, right? Maybe you want to talk about them, and your daughter Margie got married and has children, and your son Alexander got married and has children. Maybe you can talk about the...
Yeah, I actually have 7 grandchildren, and the first one is Claudia, and she was born actually when we still had the business, and then came Tiberio, and then Margie was married. Alexander had the first baby in Europe, Vivian, and we visited Alex a few times in Europe also in that time. We came to Europe a few times.
Yeah, we had a big wedding in 1995 in Hanover.
Yeah, in Hanover. It was a fabulous wedding. And then they had little Vivian, and a few years later Max came, and then of course Margie started, and she never stopped. Every year she had a boy. there was Cameron, and then came Lucas and Trevor. They were just a year apart. I mean, she was really, she had her hands full, and she lived in Lake Tahoe, so we always had a reason to go to Lake Tahoe. And when they came to my house, the little boys, oh my God, my house was such a mess. In no time, they were building houses with all the cushions they could find. But it was a pleasure. I really missed that time for a while when it was over. And then Papi was getting more and more ill with all kinds. Then we discovered that he actually had cancer, and he had that for quite a while. And he was always so proud when he came home and saying, I'm 0-0, but he didn't always tell me the truth. There was more to it. And then came the time where he really couldn't walk much anymore, and he would fall down. And I, in the meantime, didn't, with the schools that was over anyway, and with working in the club, there was less and less too. I started yoga actually. I started yoga when I still had the business, but not so much. But then I did it more and more. I went to yoga classes, and I went to other exercises, and I gave up tennis finally because my knee started to hurt a bit, and I thought, there is life after tennis, and I did other things, and it was good so. And then I had to take care of my husband. He was not doing well, and then he actually died in 2008. He died a few months before Obama became president. He always thought Obama never would make it for several reasons. But so he never saw it that Obama became president. And we didn't have a big funeral because we were not religious. He said, I don't want to be buried in a cemetery or so. Just spread my ashes, whatever you feel like. I don't want to be buried. Because of his experience, I think, and with his family. So...
well, I know that one time I went with him to discover his old homeland.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to the cemetery where he buried his family to find that.
Yeah.
And there was no more cemetery left.
No,
it had been bulldozed over, nothing there.
Yeah.
So I think he said, I'm not interested in cemeteries because they're not long-lasting.
Yeah. And anyway, no, he didn't like that. When the doctor told him, and I went to the hospital, and he was falling down a lot at the end. And then I brought him to the hospital, and they kept him right away there. So the next morning I went back, and the doctor came in and said, well, Rocky, you always said you don't want to lose your beautiful hair, so you didn't want to have any chemo. And I have to tell you, you're only going to live another, perhaps 2 more months, 1 more month, not more than that. And he looked at me, he said, I want to be cremated. That was his answer. And then he made a joke. And I said, I was in shock. I said, It's okay. He said, I had a good life. I'm 80 years old now. I had a good life, right? He was almost 80. It was a few months short of 80. And he felt like he had a good life and it was okay. So then I had to, then they told me they make arrangements that he would come home with hospice. And they, I must say, the hospital, they took care of everything. They brought him home. And then he lived about another 5-6 weeks, I think, at home. And he just fell asleep and was gone, you know. It was, he did never suffer. That was good. That was one good. He never suffered.
Yeah, I remember that was actually a nice time. We was at home in his bed with his loved ones around. Everybody had plenty of time to say thank you and
all the friends
appreciate and say goodbyes. It was
even his old sucker, those little boys, the boys, they used to be little, but they were all these big men now. They heard about it and they came by and said hello to him. And his best friend Charles always came by. They still never stopped making jokes, even though he was sick. These two were always. They had such a good time. Charles was his best friend for all this time when he was retired, before that already. And they would go, when he still could walk, they would go for a walk all the time. And they always would buy a lunch, but they shared it. They never could eat a whole lunch anymore. So they would always share some sandwiches, I think. And though he actually had the dawn of his life, the end of his life was very pleasant in many ways, because we lived in that cute little house and right in Mill Valley in the woods, and then he had his good friend Charles, and then he had his children that came by once in a while the grandchildren, and that was it, you know, that was it. And then I was alone.
I know this was difficult to tell. Why don't we take a break here? Because you have an exciting life that happened even after Papa passed away.
Oh, I have to say one more thing. Papi's last word. Last word says, Mommy, you travel when I'm gone. You travel, that's what you love to do. You have enough to do that. He said, you travel. And since I'm an obedient wife, that's what I did.
Okay, so the next chapter, we'll talk about Annette's